Okay, this podcast is going to be about preparing with the elderly. Again, it's something that nobody ever has touched on before, as far as I can tell. I've searched and I've searched. If they have, I'm not meaning to step on anybody's toes, but I couldn't find it easily enough, so I'm going to do one. Before I start, first, y'all better start liking and subscribing, or I'm going to tell everybody you dance naked to Justin Bieber songs. And I'll do it. That I'll do. I might not tell your dog it's adopted, but I will throw you under the bus. All right, to the podcast. I've done a podcast very similar to this before. And it was just about prepping with the physically disabled. I have to admit, this one was not my idea, but I'm happy to discuss it, and I'm happy to put something down for this. So it's not covered. It's just like preparing with physically disabled. It's not covered because it's not a sexy topic. At face value, it's a lot of work. It's the main reason podcasters haven't been out there and telling y'all how to do this, because they're not going to get any sponsors for it. They're not going to make big bucks for it. It's not going to generate any it's not going to generate any income for them. So they're not going to do a topic like this. If it doesn't apply to you, or you don't think it's going to be interesting, I don't give a shit. Don't listen to it. But there might be something in here you can use. You can hear I'm losing my voice, so bear with me. It really does only apply to such a small amount of preppers. And again, I know that's why nobody else has done the topic before. It's not like nobody knows there's old people or elderly or, physically disabled. They just don't want to do a topic on it because it's not going to let them sell you a $600 roll of toilet paper that also works as a single-shot .22 long rifle pistol. And I got that out. I'll be damned I got that out. The unsexy truth about preparing with the elderly is, in a lot of ways, it's harder than prepping with the physically disabled. You have to keep in mind, if someone's physically disabled, that doesn't mean they're permanently disabled. They might have something going on in the short term, or maybe it is a permanent, injury or brain injury or something like that. It's going to test you. I'm telling you right now, prepping with the elderly especially is going to test you, especially if they're on the onset of Parkinson's or, some kind of dementia. Man, it is going to test you. It will test your mettle. You're going to find out just how tough you really are. But you got to do it. If it's kin, if it's family, you're not going to let them, walk around the street in their pajamas until they pass out or whatever. You got to bring them in. You got to take care of them. Now, I don't want to turn you off to the idea of doing it. It's very rewarding once you get started on this and you start preparing for it and you incorporate it into your prepping plan. It's not going to be nearly as bad as if like a solar flare would strike and you've got nothing planned, because now you're in the middle of it, oh shit, and you got to really fight your way out. So start thinking about it. If you're putting a show together here, if you're putting something together with food and water and maybe a way to cover the windows and all that stuff, man, if you got elderly people living with you got to incorporate this. You got to think about this. This is probably the most psychologically challenging and draining preparedness challenge you will face out of all of them that I might ever even talk about. This podcast will be mostly dealing with the elderly in a grid down martial law, shit hits the fan situation. I'm not going to cover, the Huns are at your door, the wolf is at your door shooting through the locks or whatever. That's a completely different shit. This is just to get them involved, to make them feel involved, because, it's like I said with the physically disabled. Inclusion is key. If they feel you're leaving them out or you're making all the decisions for them, you've already lost the fight. You've already lost any help you're going to get. You got to keep in mind, they might have some really good ideas. I mean, they're the ones with the impairments, so include them. if you can get this done, if you can include them and you get them exciting about it, you might even end up on the Oprah Winfrey show. You might have Oprah out there giving you a hug and talking to you about how good of a job you did. So just, I don't know how to tell you this, but you got to embrace the idea of working out a plan. I live it this day to day, every day. My fiance is impaired after an accident. And to top it off, I just had back surgery. So listen, if I can do this, anyone can do it. There are a few things that'll make it much easier, at least a little easier, and I'm happy to share these actions with you. Like I said, unless the person is like under 12 years old, or they've had the onset of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, or they're full-blown Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, you must include them in every action. You must make them feel like they are part of it. They will be getting frustrated if you don't, and they're not going to play well with others, and it's just a pain in the ass. They cannot be excluded and should always be included. And I just heard what I said that rhymed, and I got to tell you, it's probably the least manly thing I've done in years. So I want to take that one back. Let's just say include them. How's that? I don't want to rhyme anymore. And again, what I said earlier, their input could be an asset to the transition into a productive, preparing, and getting, oh man, how am I trying to say this? I know what I want to say. If you include them and you use some of their ideas, if they're good ideas, you're gonna win, okay? And honestly, the downside of it is if they have an idea and it's not a good idea, face them and tell them. Don't just blow it off, because you're going to sound like you're not listening to them. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. It would be a big mistake if you don't have their buy-in, okay? And I'm going to tell you, the little old ladies are the worst. If you don't have their buy-in, it's going to be like dragging a 50-pound sandbag up a steep hill if they think you're leaving them out or making decisions for them. And I'm not telling you to do no Jedi mind tricks to get them to believe something or buy into something. Honesty is the best policy. Then you don't have to remember what you said, because they're going to remember everything you said. They might, forget where their keys are, but they're going to remember what you said. And again, they might have some ideas already. They might, what do? They sit around with nothing to do all day. They stay awake till Wheel of Fortune, and then they go to sleep. So they got nothing to do but think, so get them involved. They might come up with some stuff that you would never think of because your ass isn't in the chair. You haven't walked a mile in their shoes. You don't have a right to completely tell them what to do. They have to be included. I would say your first step is you need to face the fact that you're going to be bugging in. If you have a physically disabled or elderly person, with limited physical activity or any of the above, you're going to be bugging in. You're not going to fill up the vehicle with water, food, and people and the dog and go live in the woods. I've said it before, bad idea, okay? I know there's some of you Call of Duty commandos out there thinking how you want to bug out because you think you're going to look cool walking down the street with your AR-15 and that single-end sling and the backpack. You're not. You're going to look like a fool. And you're going to be a real dick if you leave the elderly or the handicapped behind. So, Call of Duty commandos. If you did not guess it on your own, you can ask any real grunt. I mean, a real grunt. Someone that's been in the mud. Someone that's, been in the military. Not, some bourgeois idiot talking like he knows everything because he watched a movie or he played a video game. You asked any grunt, probably one of the top 3 things they never want to do again. You know what that is? They never want to drag a fucking AR-15 in a field pack through the woods ever again. We're out of the service. We're done with that. And until you do it, you don't know how rough it is just to carry your own shit. If you're going to be taking the elderly or the physically handicapped with, you're going to be carrying their shit too. Plus, you're going to be trying to push a wheelchair up a hill with sticks and roots and everything else. It's not going to work. So you're going to be bugging in. You're not going to be bugging out. If we run into a situation where someone in our group is bleeding to death, I can only pray that I have someone that knows Call of Duty so they can reset the game and save their life. Okay, enough of that. I'll get off of it. It's just these video game people I'm embarrassed for the country. If you bug in, your home base should be already set up for whatever situation you're in. You should already have a ramp, access ramps. If they need specific disability things in the house, you should have already taken care of that. You're failing them if you haven't. So you're going to have 1,000,001 things to do. The last thing you're going to want to do is try to come up with a way for them to be able to get into the sink and get a glass of water or get the refrigerator door open. It's funny to try to do that from a wheelchair. Sometime try to cook dinner from a wheelchair. Put yourself in their shoes. Learn what it's like. Try to get dressed in a wheelchair or just try to spend half a day in a wheelchair doing your job, doing what they have to do just to get through their day. You're going to get a whole new respect for them. The next thing to possibly consider is elderly men. Most of them are capable of handling a rifle. And I'd be willing to bet you dollars to donuts that a lot of them can shoot better than you. If they can, get them to a range. Let them practice a little bit. See how it feels in their hands shooting down range. See if they can shoot from the wheelchair. If for no other reason, how fucking funny would it be to watch Grandpa's wheelchair go flying backwards after he shoots a 12 gauge? I mean, really. If the wheels weren't locked, he's going to roll all the way back to the counter where you signed in. And I am in my head, and when I was typing up the outline, I was laughing my ass off thinking about this. Where'd he go? I just, oh my God, that'd be freaking hilarious. I'm human. Deal with it. It horrifies me to say it, but in a real shit hits the fan situation, it really might be an all hands on deck. For the record, and I will go on record saying this, I would feel blessed to be fighting alongside a World War II veteran or a Vietnam veteran and stand by their side when the shit hits the fan. It would be 100% more welcome than a 20-something Call of Duty commando that still lives at home, thinks anime is real entertainment, and has no idea of what it's like to have a real woman or a real man in bed with them, depending on which way they swing, you know what I mean? So it's time to sack up and shut up about Call of Duty, guys. Really, no one gives a three-colored fuck about Call of Duty when we're talking about prepping. I don't know why I'm draining on it or dwelling on it so much. It just pisses me off. Let it be known, I truly weep for the future. So back to the podcast. There are numerous things that go into planning with the elderly and the physically disabled. It has to happen before anything else can happen. Medical needs must be satisfied before anything else. We're going to go down through a list of about 8 things here. Keep in mind without the necessary meds on hand, you might as well just have body bags in their place. You have time to prepare, but keep in mind, simple infections, minor heart conditions, or the slightest cut could all result in an unalive situation. There should be at least 30 days worth of all meds to include EpiPens and even dental care. Real quick story for you here. I don't know if they still do it, but when I was serving in the Marines to do special duty, depending on where you were going, you had to be a Class 1 dental. The reason for this is if you're standing post and you got a toothache and that's all you're thinking about, the bad guys get by you. You had to have perfect teeth for the most part. I know it was big when I was in. I don't know if it still is, but if you came out of Class 1 dental status, you were pulled off of special duty. So that's how important dental care is. Elderly have a lot of problems with their teeth, so make sure you're taking care of that. You should be prepared for bee stings. Even if persons are not allergenic, they think they're not allergic to them, I should say. They don't know if they've never been stung, so you should have an EpiPen. Some people have never been stung. You just if you can get your hands on 1 or 2 or 20, whatever you get your hands on. Antibiotic ointment is good for cuts. Yes, I know all about the controversy about antibiotics. Ointments don't work anymore because we've built up a resistance. Just shut up and get some antibiotic ointment. I am tired of arguing with everybody about everything. I know what I'm talking about. You should have several bottles of rubbing alcohol and a hydrogen peroxide. You should just, and listen, whatever meds you get together, whatever you put together, it should be in reach of a person in a wheelchair. Don't be mounting them on a shelf, real high shelf or anything like that. Keep that in mind. Everything that could be a life-saving piece of equipment should be in reach of someone in a wheelchair. You don't know, man. You might take a hit or cut yourself by accident or something, slip on blood, bang your head. The only person there that can help you is somebody in a wheelchair. You want to die because they couldn't reach your first aid equipment? So think about that. Something else you got to keep in mind is elderly people, they're kind of like, they're likely to have some form of hemophilia because of being on blood thinners. So the slightest little cut on an elderly person can turn in a major fucking oh shit situation. In my trauma kit, just for that one situation, I have a bunch of hemostatic gauze. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. Again, of course, I'm tired again. The really absorbent gauze, the non-stick gauze. I don't want it to, hold it on there until the bleeding stops. Then when you go to peel it off, it pulls the scab off and they start bleeding all over again. That's a vicious circle. It's the gauze that won't stick when you pack it. And again, I'm tired. I'll look it up till the next podcast or send me an email and I'll tell you exactly what it's called. But I also pack crazy glue. If you don't know it, that's what crazy glue was originally developed for, wound care. There's just no way you're going to field stitch. Unless you really, really are good, you do not know what to do with a jagged flesh wound. You're not going to be able to stitch it up. But I'll tell you what, you can crazy glue the shit out of that thing and it'll stop bleeding. So, you want to clean the wound the best you can before you crazy glue it. But the problem you have is if you're in a grid down martial law, I don't know, whatever situation, the ambulances might not be running anymore. You might not be able to go to the ER and get something taken care of. So for this reason, it's on the list. It's one of the things on the list. You better learn some damn first aid. And just because you put a Band-Aid on a cut in summer camp when you were 12 does not mean you're first aid certified. I would say I don't even like just a general Lifesaver first aid or American Cross first aid. I don't think that covers enough for the situation we could be heading into. You should really be going as far as you can afford it and time permits. Get as much training in first aid as you can and get somebody else in your mag trained on it. You should have at least 2 persons trained in advanced first aid for every 8 people you have. You should have an extra pair of glasses, even if it's not like the newest prescription. If it's a one prescription back, it's better than no glasses at all. And you know what I mean. I guarantee you, one of the first problems you're going to have if you don't have spare glasses is a broken pair of glasses that you can't fix even with the whole tube crazy glue. So have an extra pair of glasses. I'm going to tell you something else. This is not the time for contact lenses. You're going to be dirty. You're going to always be dirty. No matter how much you wash, you're going to be dirty because you're not washing your clothing as much, because you're not washing your face as much, because you're living in a shitstorm. Your hands are going to be dirty. You're going to be getting that in your eyes, and then you're going to have a whole nother problem on your hands. No contact lenses. If you have glasses, you wear glasses. From the time the shit goes down, you start wearing your glasses. You're not looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right out there. You're looking to, stay in the fight. That's all you care about. Glasses, not contacts. I don't want to have to repeat that one. There should be a large supply of vitamin C on hand, and everybody in your MAG group, including you, physically disabled, elderly, I don't care, give it to your dogs, but you should all be taking vitamin C every day. You're not going to be eating right. You're going to need that vitamin C. Multivitamins are another good shot, but I prefer an additional dose of vitamin C. So just keep that in mind. If you're elderly, oh, here comes a yawn. Shit. If the elderly are fully aware and cognizant of what's going on, they can self-medicate, and the medication can be within their reach. But if not, meds should be administered for them, and they should be locked up somehow. The last thing you want is somebody to get you their meds and take too many meds and, go toes up. That's going to be on you because you didn't take enough safety precautions. And everybody in the world could come up and talk to you and say it's not your fault. You're going to know in your heart it was your fault because you didn't put a locking case somewhere for that. Also, if you're going to do this, listen, guys, girls, whoever's listening, I'm going to tell you right now, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but if you're going to be putting padlocks on stuff, if you're going to be locking stuff up, it's extremely important. If you're going to be locking stuff up, use padlocks with combinations on them. Do not use keyed padlocks, because I got news for you. You lose that key, you can't get a duplicate made. There's nobody going to be cutting keys if there's no power. So if you have padlocks with combinations, you're good to go. Do not use locks with keys in a shit hits the fan situation. Just that's one extremely helpful tidbit of information for you. A lot of people don't think about that. That's what you're paying me all the big money for, to tell you. So use a combination lock. Okay, on to the next thing. This is, I was going to say it's a pain in the ass, but that's just too easy. There's a good chance you're going to need to make special accommodations for the bathroom situation. The elimination of waste, we'll call it. It's yucky, but you got to do it. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, it is. You can get a 5-gallon bucket somewhere, and they make toilet seats that are designed for use on top of 5-gallon buckets. Who did I see had the nice ones? I think Bass Pro had a nice one in their catalog, or Cabela's, or one of those. Hell, you can get one on Temu for under $10, and it would work. It's going to work just fine. But you really should have something like that made up and ready to go. You can actually, it's not that easy though, just to do that. They're going to try to get out of their wheelchair and they're going to try to sit on the thing and it's going to knock over, and it might be funny. I don't know. I have a twisted sense of humor, but it's not the situation you want. You can use a wheelchair frame, lock the wheels. You're going to have to cut if it's an older wheelchair, you're going to have to cut the seat out of it, slide the bucket in there. Then they got something to hold on to on the sides when they plant their ass. I personally recommend you go to a store, where they sell the medical equipment, and they actually have a frame that you use over a toilet with nice armrests on the side of it to help the elderly or the handicapped people get up and down. And that 5-gallon bucket will scoot in there real nice. The only other thing you got to get, 5-gallon bucket, the toilet seat cover, maybe that frame. If not, if you have an old wheelchair, you can do like I said. The only other thing you got to do is you got to go to a camping store, like a RV store or a camping store. You want to get the real camping bag liners for the toilets. You don't want to use cheap grocery bags. I almost said and shit like that. You don't want to use cheap grocery bags. And you can get those heavy duty, body bags at the hardware store, but you only get like 40 of them in a box. What are you going to do? Shit less than 40 times the rest of your life? I doubt it. So you get roll and rolls and rolls and rolls of those other ones. In the worst case scenario, you can use a shopping bag, you can use a garbage bag, you can use whatever you want. But I guarantee you the first time you go to take that bag out of that can, there's going to be a hole in it, and then you got a whole nother problem on your hand. Those real ones for the campgrounds are really nice. They hold up. They don't tear. I can't believe I'm talking this much about taking a shit. This let's just say we covered the basics of the medical and bodily function areas of responsibility. Okay. Let's talk about the psychological aspects. If the elderly do not want to be much involved. That's fine. Don't throw a shovel at them and tell them they can at the very least dig their own grave to get that out of the way. That's dark and twisted humor. To be honest, let's be honest about this. It's your grandpa, your grandma, abuelo or abuela. They got us this far. We can take it from here. We can help them. They can read. We'll do the rest. They don't have to be involved if they don't want to. Honestly, they've done enough. If they're able to remember what is going on and remember simple tasks, you can give them simple tasks to do. Don't blow it out of proportion to try to make it sound like they're doing the dishes. They're doing the dishes will cure cancer. They're going to smell the bullshit right there. Do not patronize them. They're older and they're smarter than you and me. So, like I said, don't tell them, hey, if you do these dishes, it'll cure cancer. It'll be a really big help. No. If you do dishes, it helps. It's that simple. They'll appreciate the acknowledgement. They're not looking for, a ribbon. I mean, I guess some of them are. Ribbons are kind of cool to hang up, and not right now. Even if they're still in the prime of their life, you're going to go easy on the physical activity. But, if worse comes to worse, you got to be able to maybe rely to, all hands on deck, grab a gun, here they come. Set them up at a window spot, go over an area of responsibility with them. This is really the only defensive activity I would assign them. I wouldn't throw some crazy stuff out there go probe for landmines or anything, but they could be in a window in a non-critical area if need be. No other defensive assignments. I don't think there should. I mean, picture your grandma with a set of nunchucks fighting North Koreans in your driveway. Funny shit, but it's not going to happen. So, yeah, I'm going to just picture that for a while. That's funny. Yeah, okay. If their memory's kind of getting funny and they're confined to a wheelchair, it's a really tough situation where you're going to put them, even what they're going to do to keep their mind busy. Their pride is going to kick their asses every day if they can't help, if they have enough of G2 going to be able to want to help. You need to find something for them to do. I personally think you put them in with the little kiddos. If you got some, you got some kids before they turn into those evil little bastards, right before that age where they're smart enough to talk, but they're still not the evil bastards you want to hold underwater until they stop kicking. This is a good job for the elderly. They can take care. They can herd the kids. If nothing else, they can yell your name and say, this one's getting away, or, that one just grabbed a chainsaw and he's running down the hall. At least they can notify you. But don't. That is so important. You don't. How do I say? It's so important you include them and don't forget about them. Try to do something. If you got to put a Post-it note there or something where you're working on stuff, whatever you got to do not forget about them. Include them. I got nothing else on this one right now. I wanted to get something out. The preparing for physically disabled one earlier was actually met with very high praise. It was probably a better podcast because I probably wasn't half as tired. But the way things are going right now, I know it's all the way on the other side of the world, but the way things are going right now, you need to get your mind in gear. You need to start thinking, what am I going to do if? And stop that stupid, idiotic bullshit. It's never going to happen here. I said it before. The teachers went to Columbine that morning thinking it was going to be a good day. The students went to Columbine that day thinking it's going to be a normal day. I guarantee you, not a single teacher or student walked into Columbine High School thinking I might get shot at today. And that had nothing to do with the world in crisis like it is right now. Sandy Hook, nobody thought anything was going to happen there. I don't know, I'm tired, I'm having trouble thinking of other situations, but about every 3 days something goes off. So you got to stop saying it's never going to happen here and start thinking it might happen here. and you gotta prepare for it. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy a bunch of bullshit. You get your food stocks together, you get your water together, you take care of the, basic necessities to stay alive. Assess your group, who's capable of doing what. You don't even need the guns until you get everything on lockdown. I can't tell you how important it is not to go run and buy a gun. A gun is a lot of food. What you would pay for a new gun would buy a lot of food and good water storage. You don't have to buy everything all at once. When it comes time to buy a gun, we can talk about that. We can talk about what's important when you buy a handgun. It's not the price. It's not the way it looks. It's what feels comfortable in your hand, and if you have a natural point of aim. And dear God, that's going to be hard to explain over a podcast. But we can do that. I don't know if I'm going to put it in a crisis series, but we can talk about that. But I'm not trying to encourage anyone to run out there and buy a gun. That's very important. Chances are you're not even going to use it if somebody attacks you. They've done a lot of studies on this, and a lot of people will throw the gun and run. And don't say it wouldn't be me, because it's happened in some very prominent areas where people should be able to carry a gun. So, gun's a big responsibility. I know we're getting off topic here, but I also know, based on emails, a lot of people are wanting me to start talking about security and protection and yada, yada, yada. Your first layer of protection is your intelligence. That is your first layer of protection. The gun doesn't come first. Your intelligence, you have to be able to assess every situation. You have to know what you need and what you don't need. And you have to be in the mindset to know that if all you have is a gun, you damn well better be able to eat the bullets, because you're going to run out of food soon. So hang in there with me. We will go over it. We'll talk about it. I might have somebody else on here real soon with me. Dude's got a lot of guns, knows a lot about guns. He's he's a lot less in age than me, and he's very intelligent when it comes to stuff like this. He's got a very open mind. We've discussed a lot of these things before, so I should be having him on soon. I'm trying to get another old Badger on here with me also, but I think he's more afraid of microphones than bullets, so we'll see if we can get him on too. I do have another guy I used to work with. I want to get him on. I just like him because he's very open to any ideas. I love talking to this guy, and he bounces ideas back at me, like, well, what about this? Well, what about, he keeps me on my toes when we talk. He's coming at this from no tactical training, nothing at all, but he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he knows to automatically, no matter what I say, like if I say, all right, you need a gallon and a half of water every day in the summertime, he's already doing the math in his head for how much he's going to need for his family. I can see the wheels turning and the smoke coming out his ears. Dude's got his shit wired together already, and he knows nothing about anything except what he's taught himself and what we've discussed. And already I'd put him up there as being pretty well prepared. You know who the hell you are. Don't let your head swell. I know you're listening to this. Shut up. So we'll be talking about guns later. Maybe not even guns. Maybe we'll start with pepper spray first. Man, I freaking love pepper spray. Maybe we'll talk about pepper spray first. But one of the things I want you guys to start thinking, and gals, you guys start thinking about first, you got to get in better shape, because shit's coming. Okay. I myself, as soon as my back is better, I plan on getting back to the gym. But I just had a couple chunks of my spine out, so I'm going to be a little bit slow, and I can still kick most of your asses. You can save money if you shop smart. But if you're going to be buying beans and rice in the bags, you got to get the dryer cartridges to go in there with them to keep them from spoiling. Okay? No, I'm not losing my mind, and I'm not getting off subject. I'm just trying to get you to understand these are how many things you have to be thinking about at all times to be prepared. You're going to get tired. It is mentally draining. I really, honest to God, I didn't go off topic there. I did it on purpose. I know you're going to call it bullshit, but I did. I have trouble getting people to understand how you have to think 360. Coming from the Marines, I look at the world in black and white eyes. I have no gray. There is no gray. There's either black or there's white. That's how everything in a crisis is processed. The fact that I'm engaged to the love of my life, the hippie that she is, I'm kind of starting to learn to think a little more 350 or 360. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting better. But I can tell you, in a real crisis, when this shit hits the fan, I'm going to fall right back into black and white. Everything's going to be linear. That's how I process emergencies. So start thinking. Start when start thinking about what you need. If you're going to have to prepare for the elderly. If not, this thing might have been a total waste of your time. However, if you do get into a MAG group and they do have elderly and nobody else is in there, you're going to look like a superstar if you start talking about some of the stuff that needs to be done. You're welcome. Listen, y'all, it is getting very, very hairy out there. It is... I'm not going to say the sleeper cells are all waking up and we're going to hell in a bucket, but stay awake. Watch. If something doesn't look right, watch it. Maybe it isn't right. Maybe you're starting to hone some skills you didn't even know you have. But keep your eyes open. Keep your head on a swivel. And for fuck's sake, watch your six. All right, y'all. Be safe. Peace out.